Hello and welcome to CBC Arts Exhibitionists. I'm your host, Amanda Paris. With stages closed and dance studios shuttered, the ballet world has been hit hard by this global pandemic. But this time has also created space for a long overdue conversation about the way tradition and narrow standards have obscured practices of racism. Today we explore the question, how do we make ballet a safe space for Black, Indigenous, and dancers of color? First, I sit down with iconic ballet dancer Misty Copeland to find out how she thinks change should happen. In Winnipeg, Alvin Ailey dancer Rachel McLaren shares how she is moving through a year of change and challenge. Then a panel of experts discuss this moment of reckoning happening in Canadian dance. And finally, we head to Six Nations, where choreographer Santi Smith takes us back to her first performance after leaving the ballet world. Misty Copeland is arguably the most famous ballet dancer in the world. She may have begun practicing ballet at the ripe old age of 13, but that didn't stop her from rising up the ranks to eventually make history as the first female African-American principal dancer at the American Ballet Theatre. Misty has many accolades under her belt in an acclaimed career that includes performing the title in Firebird and the lead in Swan Lake. Beyond the world of dance, Misty is a New York Times best-selling author, has received numerous awards and endorsements, and is even the inspiration behind a Barbie doll. Misty has worked with countless charities providing mentorship for young dancers in the hopes of ensuring that the future of ballet looks a lot different than it does today. Hi, Misty. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm so excited to speak with you.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
I mean, this is such a weird moment in history. You've had your livelihood, dance, performing in front of audiences taken away because of this pandemic. And we're also in the midst of this huge global cultural reckoning. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been feeling in this moment?
It's been a mix of emotions. I feel like, the dance world, not being able to be in a studio and be physical and keep up our training and our livelihood is gone. Theaters are shut down. So the impact that I've seen on the dance community is just massive. But myself personally, I was dealing with an injury right at the beginning of quarantine. So it's been a little different because I wouldn't have been able to dance had theaters been open and this
Right.
not happening. So in terms of the dance world, I feel like this is a moment where we can step back and have a clean slate in some way, because I feel like we haven't fully accessed our broad reach. Yes, ABT is an international touring company, but it doesn't mean that we have that representation in the audiences and on the stage just because we're traveling the world. And I feel like this is a moment for us to really make a presence for ourselves virtually, as well as with Black Lives Matter, giving us an opportunity to fully address what has been neglected from the beginning of time, which is the institutional racism in ballet.
So many institutions have issued statements of solidarity, including the American Ballet Theatre. But beyond these statements, have you been seeing the change that you feel needs to happen?
I have not seen changes happen yet, which, it's kind of hard to know what we can really see happen quickly, without it just feeling like these are quick fixes for the moment. I think these are things that are going to take time to really see if people are going to keep their word and really put in the work and invest in Black people. It's a moment for me, I think, to kind of pass the baton to the next generation, to give them kind of a support system to feel that they can speak out with their words, about their experiences as Black people in ballet, which I feel like, in the past, it's kind of been something that a lot of Black dancers have shied away from. thinking that there will be some type of backlash. So this is the first time that, internally and within the ballet community, we're actually having these conversations and they're actually listening. So that's a step.
Even the audience for ballet is a really exclusive community. Have you seen effective steps being taken to make it more accessible and welcoming?
In the past, maybe 5 years, or maybe a little over 5 years, is really when I saw the biggest change happen in terms of diversity. And, it started with my performances and just seeing a shift in different communities, and also younger audience members. When you see yourself included and represented, people are going to want to come in and support, and they're going to want to support their community, and they're also going to want to support their children in if this is something they want to do. But why would you do that if it's not going to be a safe place, or a place that would even give them possibilities? So there's just still so much work to be done. Like, if we don't go to these communities and give access and give opportunities to a more diverse group of people, then we can continue to use the same excuse, which is there's just not enough out there that have the training to get into whatever company. But it's like we have to start from the ground up, as well as, kind of from the top down. Board of directors, we need to see more representation there. These are the people making the decisions and putting the money in. The artistic staff, the teachers who are teaching young people, they need to be able to relate to their students. There's so much internal work that needs to be done. I'm actually getting on a call in a couple of hours to discuss it with my company.
Right. I mean, this is the other side of the work game that nobody else sees, right? The other part of the job that you've been doing, which is advocating and pushing these ways, right? You have had some incredible mentors, including the late Raven Wilkinson. Because of Raven and other Black dancers of her generation, the ballet world looked very different for you. If you could look a few decades into the future, what do you hope the ballet world looks like for a young Black dancer?
I would just want to see so much of the structure of it change. I think that would really there's so much of this like hierarchy that exists, with these titles and even when I think about the term ballet master and ballet mistress, it's like there's so many small things that don't allow for us to feel safe, to feel that we belong. Those small things I would like to see go away. Having the option to have skin color point shoes and ballet slippers and tights presented to us, all of those small, nuanced things, they can just tear away at you and just leave so many scars. So I think when we see those things change, that it'll just be a safer and more open environment for Black and brown dancers. And that's what I would like to see in the future.
I think that sounds beautiful and amazing, and not impossible to get to. It feels very reachable.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much, Misty, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so, so much. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Coming up, Rachel McClaren shares how she has moved through a pregnancy, a pandemic, and a cultural reckoning.
The life of an artist is a challenging life. If you choose that as a path, which I did, I felt like I needed to perform and I needed to be on stage as a way to reach other people, as a way to tell stories and to express myself and to find connection through humanity. As an artist, you do that because you're passionate about it and you love it. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll make an easy living for you. My name is Rachel McClaren. I am a dancer, a modern contemporary ballet dancer. And I've spent the last 16 years of my life living and dancing in New York City as a member of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. I learned about the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater through a family friend who gave me a book, and it was called Dancing Spirit. It was the first time I saw a Black ballerina. This little girl, she was in point shoes, in a beautiful little tutu, and she had these beautiful poses, and she was just so self-assured. And I was like, what? That's me. So I felt completely drawn to this idea of embodying a dancer and becoming this person that I felt like I already was. I had been traveling and performing with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater for over 10 years. And I was also in a long-distance relationship with my now husband, who has always lived in Winnipeg, and we were actually high school sweethearts. But of course, I knew I had to fly, and I knew I had to live my life. And then it came to a point, which is a very interesting point in the career of a female dancer, that we decided we were ready to have a family. And I decided that I was going to come back home. I recently moved back to Winnipeg to start my own family and to expand my career and my life as an artist on my own. And it has been quite a journey. It's been incredible, full of challenges and insights. Eventually, I found myself, I found a way to get back to kind of communicate with myself in that very vital way, and to kind of carve the space out for myself to reconnect with myself. I am still living in Winnipeg, and we're expecting our second baby, and I'm not dancing with Ailey anymore, but I am finding my way to cultivate my art. You just have to not allow fear or doubt to be your master. You have to allow your passion to really move you through those scary and challenging times.
Dance is facing a cultural reckoning. Canadian dance companies and institutions have been forced to confront the ways they treat Black, Indigenous, and people of color in their ranks. We brought together 3 people from different parts of the dance world to look at how we can make the entire industry a safer space. Rachel McLaren is a lifelong dancer who trained with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet and spent more than a decade dancing with the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. Seika Boy is a former dancer who now researches and teaches Blackness and dancing in Canada at the University of Toronto. And our moderator, Kevin Ormsby, is the artistic director of Cash Dance. Over to you, Kevin.
Hi, Rachel and Seika. Rachel, you grew up loving dance and being able to train at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. But soon you realized that there was what you call a great resistance to you in dance. What was that resistance?
I had really incredible teachers that encouraged my talent, but whenever I did try to push into the professional school to get that more devoted training, which is absolutely necessary in order to push yourself into that professional realm, I was rejected by the school. I was unable to make that step into that exemplary training. And, I think that because there weren't many dancers of color in the school to begin with, and I had never seen a dancer of color, certainly one that reflected my background within the ranks of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet Company, I don't think that they saw me as a fit within their school, or possibly even within their company. And therefore, I was encouraged by my teachers to go to other schools and get other training that would probably be more suited to my body type, or to my potential as they saw it. And I had to unpack that. What did that mean for me when I knew that I needed to be on the stage and that I had the talent to be on the stage?
Thank you for sharing that. Seika, you've done a lot of research on the history of Black people dancing in Canada. Why do you think having these conversations in Canada is so difficult?
I think we need to start with a general lack of acknowledgement of systemic racism in day-to-day life in Canada. And if we can't acknowledge anti-Black racism in day-to-day life, we can't expect it to come into the way that our cultural institutions and dance institutions are run. The lack of knowledge starts with not learning the history of Black people in school or in the process of maturing into adults, the adults who run these organizations within Canada. And it's part of our legacy, both that there was slavery in Canada, but also that we haven't been educated about what that continues to mean for us in the 21st century. You know, the very things that were being protested in the summer of 2020, systemic racism, police violence, the overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous people in prisons and detention centers, racial profiling in the workplace, schools, and the streets, these aren't left at the studio door. Those things enter with us.
What needs to change to make these dance spaces, safer, in your view?
We need to start with having Black people in leadership positions, as I've already mentioned, not only in artistic roles, but in human resources, in health and well-being supports, on the board, at instructional levels, and in terms of the guests and the artists who are being invited to work with the company. What values are demonstrated there? It's up to artistic institutions to educate dancers who are often so young when they come into a company about the broader network that they belong to as dancers in their city, in their province, in Canada. Who are the funding agencies? Who are the performing artists unions that they belong to? What are the artist health services outside of the organization that they have access to? Who are the people advocating for dancers? Who can they go to if they have a problem? And what communities can they become a part of in order to advocate for improved conditions for dancers themselves?
So you mentioned this thing about accountability. If I could add the idea of like cultural accountability, what does it mean when we're thinking about Canada as a cultural nation to have accountability for everyone, including, again, Black, Indigenous, and people of color artists? Rachel, you have worked in the US and in Canada. What should Canada dance organizations be learning from their peers in other places?
Well, I had the great privilege to dance for the Albany American Dance Theater, which is a beacon and a brilliant organization that does so much in terms of being an American cultural ambassador to the world, and specifically really bringing African American culture into an international audience. And what I love about Ailey's mission is that it was all about the fact that dance and his experience with dancing was homegrown. It was rooted in his blood memories, and it came from the people. You know, dance comes from the spirit. It comes from the body. We all have an inherent sense of musicality and of movement, right? This is part of the beauty, the humanity of dancing. I think that my mission as an independent artist currently is to make sure that I am doing my best to bring out as much as I can from my students, to represent, to be the woman of color that I didn't necessarily have when I was a young dancer, to encourage that light to come out of my students. I think that in Canada, we have such an incredible diversity here, and that so many artists have so much to say. They need those safe spaces to be able to say what it is that they have within them.
What's resonating with me is this idea of a collective creative humanity, as you've all mentioned and spoken about. And also that I paraphrase that beautiful phrase, dance came from the people and it should be given back to the people. Thank you all for joining me in this important conversation.
Thank you so much,
for
Kevin.
having
It's great
me.
to see you.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you, Seika.
Thank you, Seika. Thank you, Rachel.
Coming up, Santee Smith takes us back to where her dance career began, revisiting her first original choreography on her family land in Six Nations.
Over the 15 years of my company, Kahawi Dance Theater, it's been a challenge to figure out, the identity of the company and what we represent. Even to this very day, I have that question of, am I Santee the artist, or am I a Mohawk artist? And how do I frame that, or how does society see my work and frame me? Santee Smith, Dagalunyakwa, Nyungyats, Gungwaihoe, Ganyangahaga, Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, Turtle Clan. My name is Santee. I am the artistic director of Kahawi Dance Theater. I'm an artist, director, producer, and I'm the chancellor of McMaster University. I was 11 years old and I moved from Six Nations to residence and train at the National Ballet School for 6 years. I didn't finish my last year because I decided at that time that the ballet was actually not for me. It wasn't really about the actual dance, it was wanting to connect to home. For me, dance is now very much rooted to the land and telling stories that were not told in mainstream theater and dance. Ballet has a long history of being touted as, the pinnacle of artistic practice and expression. And I think there's a whole host of other forms, other influences, other original dances from this land that we call Canada that are really important to highlight, and that's the work that I do, that's who I am, and that is what Gahawi Dance Theatre is, bringing awareness to Indigenous cultures, not from a preconceived stereotypical notion of what Indigenous dance looks like.
If you would like to learn more about what's happening in the dance world, please visit our website. There we've curated a ton of content, from a short doc on choreographer Victoria Mata, where she breaks down the dollars and cents required to put on an independent dance production, to our third season of The Move, where we focus on the kids tearing up the dance floor. You can find it all at cbc.ca/arts. Tune in next time when we'll be looking at the ways that we consume and create fashion. It's gonna be a good one. Peace.